We love supporting and promoting the creators of musical theater throughout the world, and we would love to have your support as well. Go to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the Become a Patron button, because a supportive community is a strong community. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I'm going to read a quote from their website, which should give you a pretty good indication on who they are. It says, "My job is to entertain, educate, and emotionally challenge the audience. Each work is a call to action, whether it be to storm the barricades, seek acceptance, or merely to love. Sufficiently intrigued to learn more? I know I am. You should be as well. So let's welcome to the show lyricist and book writer Joan Ross Sorkin." Hello, Joan.
Hello, John Paul. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Great. It's great to have you here as well. Now, before we delve into your shows and everything else in your life, I want the audience to get to know who you are. So you have 30 seconds. Who is Joan Ross Sorkin in 30 seconds?
I don't know if I can do it in 30 seconds. But I am a playwright first, and a musical theater book writer, and musical theater lyricist, songwriter, and also opera librettist. So I am in a lot of different worlds, and each world is wonderful. But I must say that it took a long time to get to all of those worlds. At least I didn't start in those worlds. I have kind of an interesting trajectory in terms of getting into the world of musical theater, at least to focus on that. My professional career started, I was a Wall Street lawyer. And I practiced law for about 7 years. And after both of my children were born, I decided that I really needed to take a break to be a mother. My husband was also working downtown, Wall Street. We both had very high-powered careers, and I knew that that was not going to work out so well. So I decided to take a break, and I have always been in love with the theater. I grew up loving the theater, going to the theater a lot. My parents took me to Broadway shows and other shows all the time. For every birthday, that's all I wanted as a birthday present. Tickets to the theater. And, everybody, so many people in the theater, they were in, their high school or elementary school shows, and, they were at camp, and, I've got that whole resume as well, because that's when you love the theater. That's where you're introduced to the theater, just in your hometown, and what you do on a normal day. And I always loved just the magic of it. And anyway, but I never thought I would have a career in the theater. I really always wanted to be a lawyer, and I became a lawyer. And then I made what I call a right turn instead of a left turn, because the right turn was to the theater. And I actually have to credit my son Andrew a little bit, because even when I was practicing law, one day when he was like 4 years old, he said, "Let's write a play." And I said, "Okay, you dictate, I'll write it down." Anyway, the two of us together wrote about 4 pages of a little play for all of his friends, who of course couldn't read the script, neither could Andrew. And so they all memorized, like their one line. And we put on this play in our house, and that became a whole thing. And we did a whole bunch of plays. And then when we moved up to our home here in Westchester and Scarsdale, he wanted to do another play in his house, in our house. And I said, "You don't know these kids." So we landed up doing a play for his school, in his class. And then I started a whole program called Kids on Stage, which was an after-school program for elementary school kids. And I wrote all, original plays that were age appropriate, for elementary school kids up to, I guess, up to about fourth grade. And I did that for almost 13 years. And then I decided, got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I took the program over to the Emlyn Theater and to the Rye Art Center and all sorts of places, Westchester Y, and all sorts of places after having it in the school system as well. And anyway, then I said, I'm going to write for the adult theater. I'm getting serious about this. And I started writing plays. And of course, my first love was musicals. And I sort of an interesting story how I got into that, but I did get into that. And along the way, I was very fortunate to be part of the BMI Musical Theater Workshop, which I joined in 1999, and I am still a member very happily, more than 20 years later. And that has become my family. And of course, the theater's become my family. And over the years, I've had plays, musicals, opera. I got into the opera world also sort of, in an unusual way, but I'm very much part of that world as well. And, it's been pretty thrilling. And one of the other hats I do wear, because people do know me as this, so I should say it on the program. I am the president of the board of the York Theater, which is what I consider the leading off-Broadway musical theater in New York. So that has been quite thrilling and wonderful to be able to be part of that organization.
Very cool. That was about 6 seconds over 30 seconds, but you know what? I'll take it. Do you remember that first moment when you discovered theater when you were a kid, and it just was there a moment? Was there something, a show or
I
something?
think there was a show, and I'm going to tell you what it was, so which dates me. I saw Mary Martin in Peter Pan on black and white TV
Okay.
back in the early 50s. Okay, I was very, very, very young, but right there, I knew, oh my God, that's so fantastic.
What
You
what
know,
what do you think drew you to it? What was that turned on the light bulb?
it's the music and the story. I mean, someone flying around and having that magical journey to Neverland and singing about it. And I mean, we all in the theater, everyone knows that, when talking is no longer appropriate or enough, really, you have to sing. And it's those emotions, those grand emotions. And also the idea that you can be in a pretend world.
Mhm.
That's, I think, one of the big things that's drawn me to the theater. You can, as a writer, you can write your own truth. It's funny. When I talk about being a lawyer, I was a litigator, and you'd write briefs, and you'd have to go to court, and try to just present your case, and you had to. What I always believed, you had to tell the truth. There was a truth. There was a truth about cases. I mean, people say, oh, well, it could be this way and that way, but there was a truth.
Mhm.
And you had to find that truth, and you had to write that truth. And then when I pivoted to being a playwright, it was like I'm writing my own truth. And the story may not be true, but it's true about human nature. It's true about these characters that I'm creating in my mind. And I love that. I think that was just what it really was, a freeing kind of a thing, you know. There was not always one right answer, in other words. And it all started in my head, and I could go where I wanted to go with my characters. And whenever I write anything, I feel very much one with my characters. I really feel like they're real, like I know them. Right now, well, during the pandemic, I actually wrote a COVID play in real time called This Is Serious. And I'm writing sequels as we speak. I wrote a sequel last year, and now I'm writing another sequel. And, just it was the kind of thing that I just needed to be with these people as things were happening in the world. I realized that this pandemic was very big. It was March of 2020. And that's when I realized, I said, you know what? I'm gonna write something that's so current, that's happening, and I don't really know what's gonna happen next month.
Mhm.
And neither do these
Yeah.
characters. So in the beginning they think, oh, well, this thing's over, latest Easter, latest, probably in 2 weeks, but Easter, that's gonna be it. So you grow with these characters, and then you try to really understand like what can happen to people, you know, over time, and what, well, certainly what the plays, all these plays that I wrote, this is series, these different parts to them. Now, as I say, I'm on the fourth part. Um, it's how to deal with crisis, and what do we do, and we panic, and with life and death, and certainly in the beginning it very much seemed life and death, and it still is life and death for many people. So anyway, so that, it ups the stakes. We all write about stakes. You gotta up the stakes for your characters, right? Can't be too ordinary. So to me, this whole pandemic was about the max you can go with upping the stakes.
Obviously, you're a prolific writer, and you write for opera and everything. But did you ever explore the other side of the stage, the being on stage, or were you always drawn to being off stage? Did you ever perform?
Well, look, in second grade, I was the star of our second grade show. I was the Muddy Pig. And then, I was in things in junior high. I was a pretty terrible actor and a pretty terrible singer. But I must say that the most influential person in my life in terms of the theater was my music teacher, Gene Bissell. And he was kind of a Pied Piper. But he wrote music, and he wrote a play, a musical called Mandy, which, you know, fast forward the tape, I got into the musical theater world because of that show. And I was actually in it two different times, and I would be in his shows like in the summer, and I was part of his posse. It just, he was like the most exciting, thrilling person who loved music. And anyway, fast forward, when I decided to take this turn back in the 80s to be part of the theater, I approached him, and I had kept up with him, which was very unusual anyway, but he was just a wonderful, wonderful artist and wonderful human being. And anyway, and I said, I would love to rewrite Mandy. I'd like to rewrite the book of Mandy, and maybe have some different music, but it's such a wonderful story. It was about the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Okay, yeah.
And P.S. I landed up writing a show called The Real McCoy with David Loud, who is one of the great musical directors on Broadway, and just a great musician, a great person, and a great person in the theater. And for 4 years, we wrote The Real McCoy, and I became totally spoiled on our first demo. Audra McDonald sang
Oh.
one of the songs because David had been in master class with Audra, and it's all that connection,
Sure.
So from then on, I have had the pleasure and just it's just been a great benefit to be able to work with some tremendous people, Broadway, off Broadway, not even on Broadway, actors, and talented people in the theater, designers and directors and everything. So I've had a very charmed life, even though I have never gotten to that top level. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But you especially musical theater, it's very hard to break through because you know that it's very expensive to mount a musical, and you have to find people that have the money. And so I've done a lot of development of shows, and had the opportunity to, as I say, work with a lot of Broadway and talented people. Um, I have not had a piece on Broadway, although no, I take that back. My father used to say, "One day you're going to be on Broadway, one day." And I call him up one day and I say, "Dad, I'm on Broadway." Broadway in '76. Which for those who don't know New York, that's uptown. And I had a piece called Isabel and the Pretty Ugly Spell that was produced in the Vital Theater, which is a wonderful children's and family musical theater house. And they were housed in a theater, the Promenade Theater up on Broadway in '76. So that was my moment on Broadway. um, but it's those kind of moments that keep propelling you. Every time you have an outing,
Mhm.
even when it's a reading, and it's a public reading, and I've had many, many, many of those, which has been very thrilling for me. Um, you just feel like you're moving to the next level, and you just keep pushing and you keep pushing. I mean, that's one of the things about my career. I do not give up. I think people who know me in this industry know that I just never give up, and I just go on to the next. Or I have five balls going, that I'm juggling at one time. Right now I have three opera projects, a musical, and this sequel to This Is Serious. Just before I got on with you, I started writing just an idea of a new lyric for my musical, Black Swan Blues, which I'm very excited about.
Mhm.
That's my latest project that Randy Klein and I are writing a piece about white privilege and race in New Orleans, 1963. It is inspired by the ballet Swan Lake, and hopefully we can take that to the bank. Our Swans are an all-girl mixed-race singing group in a Bourbon Street blues club. So the score is a blues-based score. We love it.
Mhm.
We're very, very thrilled. We recorded most of the music last summer with some very high-level Broadway people, I'm very excited to say. We had a wonderful table read of the piece in December, and we've been rewriting, and we're going to have our first really public reading, hopefully in the fall. That's our plan. Um, and that's sort of part of my main focus right now is Black Swan Blues. And so we'll see where it takes us. We're very hopeful about it. We're very hopeful about it.
I think you bring up a good point when you were saying when you called your dad and said I'm on Broadway, right? That's a great point. But the problem is with what people consider to be success, right? If a lot of people think if I don't get it onto Broadway or get it into that upper echelon of musical theater, am I really a success? And I like to think, yes, you are. What you've done is incredible. The fact that you wrote a show and you got it anywhere, I think is a success, and you're a great example of that. You know what? Yes, you like you said, didn't quite get on the Broadway, right? But you've got shows performed, and congratulations on that. That is what I could call success.
Well,
So,
thank you. And I totally agree with you. I mean, everyone, my circle of friends and people that don't even know me and come up to me, and, they say I'm very successful because I've had things, I've sort of
mhm.
started from nothing, well, everybody starts from nothing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, having gone from another career to this, is very, a little bit unusual. I guess there are other people who have done it, but, um, no, I have always counted success. Anytime I have something on stage where people are either, speaking my words, singing my lyrics, whatever, I am thrilled because it is a success. And, I had a little play out in uh, New Mexico one time in Albuquerque. I mean, I was thrilled. It was like a 10-minute play. And yeah, Soft Whisper. Now I remember that. That was early in my career, and I had a whole bunch of plays, short plays. I was affiliated with the Emerging Artists Theater for a very long time, for close to 13 years, probably 13 years. And the capstone of that, in fact, was that they put up my full length one woman play with music called Misunderstanding Mammy, the Hattie McDaniel story, which Capathia Jenkins, the great Capathia Jenkins, um, got a Drama Desk nomination for it. I was thrilled then, and that was back in 2007. And I'm happy to say, hopefully this interview will be aired before April 30th. I'm not sure what your program is, but um, there will be a Zoom reading of the same play with Capathia.
Wow.
Um, the Schoolhouse Theater in North Salem, New York, is doing it. They're a wonderful, wonderful theater here in Westchester, and they have a wonderful Saturday afternoon reading series. They mostly read classic plays, but they were the ones who had picked up my This Is Serious piece, and it was very successful on their platform. And they are doing this. I'm very thrilled, and I'm so thrilled that Capathia is doing it again because she is absolutely sensational. So anyone who wants to tune into that, it is going to be April 30th, Saturday, April 30th at 3 p.m. Go to the schoolhousetheater.org. You need the in that title because that's how you get to their their website. But anyway, it just shows, things from the past. I never let go. So I'm bringing this back. We had done this in Chicago Humanities Festival. It was done in uh, Texas at a Gone with the Wind event, which was absolutely
Huh.
wild and crazy and wonderful. That they put up the play, not with Capathia in Texas, but with the local actors, and that was pretty thrilling. Um, I've had things. We had Isabel and the Pretty Ugly Spell, which is a piece that's on the sampler platter. Um, Down in Florida, we won the National Theater Children's Theater Award with that, and they did like almost 30 performances for every school kid in Dade County or something, you know, and that's in Florida. Hey, we went down there. That was fabulous, very exciting. We did it up here, that same show we did at Nymph, when Nymph was going strong. It was the second year of Nymph, and we got a huge review from the New York Times. The New York Times said, a nearly perfect pastry of a show. Even though it said nearly, I'll take it. I'll take
Yeah.
nearly. I'll take nearly from the New York Times. Nearly perfect. All right. Um, anyway, and then it was picked up at Vital, the thing I was talking to you about, and um, I had Go Green, another thing that's on your
Mhm.
platform. That was done in the very first annual New York Children's Theater Festival here in New York. Um, and I was very excited about that. And we kind of did, almost like a full production. I mean, it didn't, it was a production. We didn't have major, production values, but we did have some scenery, and we certainly had costumes, and we did the whole thing. It had great people in it, and all exciting. Um, and in the opera world, I have actually had some very nice success. My very first opera was done in development at New York City Opera,
Mhm.
and we got a commission on the spot when we made the presentation, and so we
Wow.
had the premiere down at Longleaf Opera, which is a very well respected opera company, and then we brought it back for a concert up here that City Opera um, uh, helped present in association with Harlem School of the Arts. Had top opera singers singing, people who had sung at the Med at City Opera and elsewhere, and that's thrilling. Even though it's uptown and it's up at the Harlem School of the Arts. Okay,
As long as
that's
there's an
great,
audience, right?
lovely, wonderful. And you're surrounded by these amazingly talented people. I did my White Witch premiere at Symphony Space, which is a well-respected theater here in New York, uptown. And then we did a concert of that out in Roulette, which is this very fun real indie music place in Brooklyn. That the indie place in Brooklyn. And then we had a production of that at Salem State. Um, these are kind of things, you
Yeah,
just really enjoy the success of these things. And, whether you're going to be on Broadway or not, or even in a big regional house, you aspire to that,
for sure.
but there's so many other places, and those other places honestly are really hard to get also. So people have to understand that this business is so hard. You are knocking your head against the wall every day of the week. I spend sometimes 30, 40 50% of my time trying to market myself, sending stuff out, crafting letters to just so that they're just right for that particular theater to be interested in a piece.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get your stuff because there's a lot of good work out there and good people out there who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of it is networking and, getting an introduction, knowing somebody at a particular place. I don't send things out cold anymore. I will only send things if I have an introduction to a place. But that doesn't assure you of anything. That assures you that maybe they will open the email, maybe.
Yeah.
But you love it. You have a passion for this stuff. That's why I keep going. You just love the theater, especially musical theater. That's my number one. Even though I love the opera,
Yeah.
I love playwriting and all the plays and all that. But if I could do anything 24 hours a day, musical theater.
That's literally what I do with the radio station.
Yeah,
24 hours a
no,
day.
well, that's great.
All I'm
Yes,
doing is
24 hours a day. But it's funny. Sometimes people ask me, who do you admire so much? And sometimes I think that all I want to be is Betty Comden and Adolph Green, not because of what they wrote. It's because every day they sat in the same room together, virtually every day, at least they claim, every day they would work on something together in the same room. To me, that's the ultimate, being able to do that. And it's hard because I have different collaborators for almost every show that I've written. And people have day jobs, you know. I'm lucky enough not to need to have a day job. So that's why I can write, 3 operas, a musical, and a play all at the same time. But no, it's very hard. So to me, that's the ultimate.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up collaborators, because as a playwright, obviously it's you and the characters and the script, but musical theater is such a collaborative thing. When you moved into musical theater and you had to, you found composers, was that an easy thing for you to start working with somebody, or was it something you had to learn to do?
Well, you always learn to do things. It's everything you do in life is a learning experience. um, the hardest thing is to find someone who wants to work on the same project that you want to work on, and that you know are going to be compatible with. And you really have to work at your collaboration because as I say, people, they have day jobs, they have this, other people have other things that they're interested in. And, time is not on our side. It takes such a long time to write these things. And then if you're not writing it all day long, which you're not, um, it just gets longer and longer and other things come into it. But it's really hard to find a collaborator for various projects. I've been lucky, but I'll go out and do and contact people. That's how I met David Loud. I was in the theater at Masterclass, actually, now that I remember, and read his bio, and somehow he put down in his bio. Now he was the musical director, but he, in that particular thing, he was actually he was the onstage pianist, so he was an actor in that piece. But most of the time he was musical directing. So he wrote, oh, he loves to develop new work in his little bio. And I'm thinking, oh, he likes to write. He's a composer. Well, that wasn't actually the case. I write him a letter, left it at the stage door. And he contacted me and said he'd love to meet me and see what, thoughts I had. Because I said I was looking for someone for this idea of this uh, um, piece about the Hatfields and McCoys to rediscover it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jean Bissell was actually, credited for that piece as well. But anyway, and that's how I met David Ladd. Now, of course, then things opened up because I couldn't believe how lucky I was with that. That was really kind of amazing. But then once I was in the BMI musical theater workshop, I met collaborators there. My collaborator for Go Green was my colleague there, Mary
Mhm.
Feinsinger. Mary Liz McNamara, my colleague on Dandelion, which is a new family musical piece. Um, my long-term collaborator, Steve Fisher, I didn't, he turned up to be in BMI, but I didn't meet him there. Again, I went to something. I'm sitting in the audience, uh, um, and and there he was, and he had this great piece. He had this piece about Mandela, and I went up to him and I said, "Oh my God, I got to work with you. Do you want to work on some?" And anyway, I think it was when I was working on my Strange Fruit. I hadn't gotten my opera collaborator, Chandler Carter, yet. I asked Steve, and he said, "No, no, no, but you know what? I have this other piece that I'm interested in." And he talked about Isabel. And then turned out we were both in BMI in different classes, and so then we did a bunch of things together, and he was just a wonderful collaborator. All my collaborators, look, you don't want to stay with the collaborator if it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I've had to reach into, in the opera world, I've had to really stretch and find people, but you land up you have to spend a lot of time networking and being part of the world of going to events, meeting people, being available, contacting people, following up with people. It's so important. You can't just think it's going to happen. It is not going to happen. You have to work at it. It's a huge work in progress.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I always say to a lot of new creators or artists and things like that. And I've said it many times in many places, that the word show business has two words, right? And creators spend a lot of time on the show and not enough time on the business side. And it's all about networking. Like you said, you talk to everybody because you never know who knows who or what they're going to do, and you don't burn these bridges, and you talk to people. And that's exactly, sounds like what you did, right? You just talk to people and meet
Right.
them.
Well, one of the things I learned as a lawyer, I do bring that experience of that discipline. First of all,
Mhm.
I bring the discipline, first of all, on the writing side from when you're a lawyer, because, you have a certain amount of time that you have to write a brief, and it has to be good and it has to be right, as I mentioned before. And it has to be economical in the way set things down, and that really stood me in very good stead as a writer.
Mhm.
'Cause I don't get writer's block particularly. It's not like, oh, I can't write for 2 weeks. I'm just I can't be the diva. I
Yeah.
can't, because you just sit down and you just do it. And it's the same way on the business side. I typically in my collaborations become the person, the business person. And happily, because of my experience in the law, I've been the one. I often draft up the collaboration agreements. And I do a lot of some legal work that we don't have to necessarily get a lawyer for, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
because that can be very expensive. And I don't hold myself out as a lawyer. I always tell my collaborators, I'm going to give you this agreement. I want you to go and talk to whoever you want, get your own counsel, see if it's okay. But here it is.
Yeah.
But also, I'll end up making a lot of the connections, in terms of trying to get things produced, because I've been in a lot of the worlds, and I'm willing to just do that tenacious letter writing,
Mhm.
constant letter writing. Whether it's in the old days, it was, you typed it up and you put it in an envelope and you sent it, but now it's all email and it's all digital.
Yeah.
Um, but oh my gosh, I would be at that post office with packages with scripts, and tapes and CDs and the the package. You have to send the package to the people. Um, and but I just do it because that's how you're going to get your stuff on. Otherwise you can just sit home and write your plays, and it's all very nice and no one's going to see them.
Yeah.
But you
Exactly.
got to be out there, and you also have to be your own best booster, which I guess I always have been. I've always, well, one, I've always liked the stuff I've written. I mean, you wouldn't write it if you didn't think it was pretty good.
Exactly.
So, but you have to be your own cheerleader, and you have to just really take the bull by the horns and get it done.
Great advice. Great advice. So everyone who's listening, take the bull by the horns and just go for it. Um, I'd love to talk a little bit about the York Theatre. You said you're the president of that, and York Theatre has some great stuff in the new works and developmental reading series. How did you get involved with that?
Absolutely got involved as an artist
Mm,
because I had plays done in readings there. We had the Isabel piece there. Gerard Alessandrini, the great Gerard, from Forbidden Broadway. He directed our piece at the York. I had so many pieces because also the York in their reading series. It was like the first stop for people from BMI. We would, at BMI, you bring in pieces of your projects. You don't really get your whole show on there. And so you have you present a song or you present a scene. If in librettist, you present a scene. Um, and so when you want to present your whole show, the York is really one of the great, great places as a first stop to do a public reading of your show. And so I had several readings there, quite a number. And then Jim Morgan would come down and see other shows. I remember he came down to see my Hattie McDaniel piece. I believe he might have. Yes, he definitely came down to see the Real McCoy. We did a big presentation. Wasn't even present. I mean, it was like a real show at NYU. We were chosen for the Real McCoy to do what they called their conservatory show for I guess for their seniors. Um, and you know, one of the great things about being in musical theater or any theater, you feel good when you have been around and actually helped other people in their careers.
mm.
In that show, Adam Jacobs was in our show. He became the first Aladdin on Broadway, in Aladdin, and Michael Benjamin Washington was in our little show, and he had a little small little part, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then they become something, that people know, and what they were wonderful actors then, and they became even better actors. But you feel like you've done something. Um, but anyway, so I Jim came down, saw that show, and so he knew I was sort of on his radar. And after I had a number of readings, he said, and I started to support the theater. I said, this is something I really care about. I give him a few dollars. That's what you do. You try to help people who are helping you. And I mean, I wasn't giving a major amount of money or anything, but it I think that Jim saw the kind of work that I did and the kind of person I was, I guess. And he, talked to the board, and they invited me to be a board member, which I never thought about,
Yeah.
at a time. I mean, it wasn't really on my radar. I wasn't going for it in any way. It wasn't, you know, part of my agenda. But that was a happy moment, and I thought about it, and I said, "Gee, that would be great." And I was really the first artist on the board. Now we do have other people who are, real either artists or real theater people, producers and so forth. Um, but so I was on the board, and then our chairman, longtime chairman David McCoy, was moving to Florida for part of the year. He was retiring, and uh, there was a, an opportunity to really share the leadership because they really needed to have a president, here on the ground,
Mhm.
here in New York for more of the time, even though, he was very active, still is very, very active. But we share the leadership. He's the chair. His title is chairman, and my title is president. But so I do a lot of stuff, but it's been great. And we actually put another pitch. We have a new musical called Penelope. It's about Odysseus and how Penelope, who's the wife of Odysseus, actually wrote the Odyssey. And uh, it's just a wonderful piece by Peter Kellogg and Stephen Weiner, I believe it, are the writers. And it's on now. It's on till the 24th at Saint Jean de Baptiste in New York City. If anybody's around, grab the tickets. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. So anyway, and we've had a whole bunch of really great hits there. Cagney and Rothschilds and Desperate Measures and Enter Laughing was ours. Oh, and it's just been great to be part of that company because they are in the business of musical theater. That
Mhm.
is exclusively musical theater, and they really care about the shows. And it's great to be part of the York family. The same way it's part of being part of a theater family. You know, in the theater, you really feel like you're part of this family. It's kind of a group thing. And I think that's what people love about being associated with the theater. Look, you're with people who their emotions are kind of in a heightened state all the time when, in terms of the talent, the talent people on stage, the actors and designers, and it's very emotional, right?
Yep.
It's very high level of emotion, but that's fun. So and I've always been a person who likes fun. So it's something that I love to do, and so I'm very happy to be associated with the York. And we've had so many people come through our doors, writers. In fact, we we have supported, in our reading series, or in our what we call our Neo program, where we invite. We used to have like a whole contingent of Neo writers, say 10 writers, and we would put on a concert, and each person would have like one song in the concert. And then we went to a model where we were really focusing on, say, 4 writing teams, and we gave them a mentor, and they had they would bring in their work, for a presentation. And so I think, and then of course we have these main stages where we put on new work. That's the focus of it. And then we have, of course, our Mufti series, which is bringing back old gems that no one would put on if we didn't do it. So, but anyway, I would say in terms of new writers, virtually every single person that sort of successfully has been through our doors. The only person that I know that I can't count in, and that is Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm not sure has a relationship with the York,
Okay.
although I've had an opportunity to meet him. It's very exciting, years ago. But we that's what we're happy about, that we've been able to nurture so many writers, and they have gone on to do things that have contributed to the canon of musical theater. So
Yeah.
all great, all
Well,
great.
it's all artists have to say thank you. Companies like the York Theater and people like yourself who are involved with it, you make such a difference to new writers. It gives them hope and an ability to get their work out there and in front of people and in front of people in the industry. And that's not an easy thing. So I have to say thank you from them to you.
Well, thank you. And again, that was my trajectory. So I thank the York, because they were part of the development of my work. So,
Yeah.
it all comes in full circle.
So what have you got going on right now, Joan? Anything? And I know you talked a bit about some stuff like the Black Swan Blues and things like that. And anything going on or that people can go
Right.
see
Well, so I
or know
mentioned
about?
that I have this reading, this Misunderstanding Mammy, the Hattie McDaniel
Mhm.
story, coming up this month. Very exciting. And I am I'm very excited next year. It's not this year. It was supposed to be last year, Dandelion. Um, my lovely little piece with Mary Liz McNamara. based on a wonderful children's book, Don Freeman, of which I have the dramatic rights for that I've optioned. Um, it's going to be done next spring at Playhouse on Park, which is a West Hartford theater. I'm very excited about that. Of course, it was supposed to be last year, then it got moved to this year. You know, with family musicals and things that they're going to bring to schools or have school children come to, schools weren't doing field trips. It
Yeah.
was over.
Yeah.
So you just couldn't do the thing. So anyway, it's been postponed to next season, next April, it's on. So I got that going. I am working with the wonderful, talented Anthony Davis, who won the Pulitzer Prize for music 2 years ago. He's an opera composer, and he won for his opera, the Central Park Five. But he also wrote X, Life and Times of Malcolm X, which is going to be at the Met. Plug for Anthony in the coming seasons, and we are writing a piece called "The Reef," which is based on an Edith Wharton novel. And have been speaking with the Berkshire Opera Festival, and they are interested in helping us, and we hope that we'll have something going next summer, maybe some sort of a workshop. It's not finalized, but they've been wonderfully supportive. And so that's sort of, we're working toward that. I am working on a new opera with Steve Wallace, a wonderful opera composer, called Paradise Bound, and it's based on the voyage of the SS St. Louis, which was a ship that took 937 Jewish refugees ostensibly to Cuba, but was turned, this is right before the World War II in 1939, and was turned away from Cuba, turned away from the US, forced back. And in the end, at the last, 11th hour, various countries agreed to take them so they didn't have to go back to Germany. But this very sad and ironic ending is that 254 of those people perished in the Holocaust, because those who went to Holland, Belgium, and some to France were ultimately rounded up by the Nazis. But there was so much intrigue on the boat, on the ship. The passengers threatened to have a mass suicide, and the captain. We're writing it from the point of view of the German captain. He actually saved them. He was going to run the ship aground off the coast of Britain on the way back, set the ship on fire, take his chances that they would be rescued by the British, and actually got to shore. I mean, it was a big risk. He was risking everything. And just before that, there was this international agreement to take the refugees. But it's a thrilling story. So that opera is underway. I'm writing with Randy Klein, my collaborator on Black Swan Blues. We're writing a piece called Jubilee, which is based on a novel by the very unsung, wonderful African American writer Margaret Walker. We are adapting her book Jubilee for opera, and it's called Jubilee. And we're also incorporating some of her poetry. She was a great poet, and she wrote about the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s. And so we're combining the story about Jubilee, which is about her great grandmother's journey from slavery through emancipation and Reconstruction, and combining that with what was happening in the 60s and 70s in the civil rights movement. So we're excited about that, and we hope to have a piece, a concert version of that in Jackson, Mississippi in 2025. We're working toward that. We have been speaking to the Margaret Walker Center and working with them on that. So we'll see if it all happens. But you can see the timelines are just, they're out there. It's not like I have something, in May, June, July.
You are going to be busy for the next little
Yeah,
while,
I
for sure.
never stop. I'm
Yeah,
I'm just constantly, busy, busy, busy. But that's what this life is about, right?
exactly. Exactly. Joan, thank you for taking time out of your obviously really busy schedule because you're doing so much to come and talk to me today and be on the program. Congratulations on everything you do. And thank you for letting me share your shows on the Sampler Platter here on the station. It's
Well, thank you so much for having them. I'm just delighted there are four pieces on the platform. So I'm just thrilled about that. And thank you for having me on the show today.
no problem. Now, before we go, I always ask our guests three questions. There's no right or wrong answers, but we're going to get to know you a little bit better than what we already did. So, are you ready for the first question?
I am.
Okay. Question number one: and this is an opinion, which decade of musical theater do you feel was the most influential throughout the time of musical theater? Is there a decade that you feel influenced most?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, 50s and 60s, the time when, My Fair Lady and Sound of Music and all those sort of classic things. I mean, Oklahoma was maybe a little bit before that. Um, you know, those were all, I think, really very special for me. And then Gypsy followed that. I don't know exactly the timeline for every single one,
Yeah.
but it was that period of time that for me was really so very special. And of course, there's been great shows since then, but
Yep.
that's my answer.
Correct answer. Of course, there's no wrong answer, but it's correct answer. 1 point. All right. Question number two. You live the world of the law. You live the world of musical theater. Which TV or movie do you think would make a good musical that's based on lawyers or the law? What
Oh
TV
my
law
gosh,
movie or
based on the law.
yeah. So, is there a law TV show or a movie about lawyers that you think could make a good musical?
Well, I don't think those legal dramas on TV are definitely, musical material.
No.
I don't know.
No
You
Ally
know,
McBeal the musical.
yeah, I don't know that it's gonna make. Yeah, well, they did the L thing,
Legally Blonde.
the Legally Blonde thing, but that was about this girl going to law school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have seen, there was a play called Enron that was
Yes.
about the financial crisis, but also I think part of that was like part of the there was the legal aspect of them getting in a lot of trouble, and there may have been some legal things. I don't
Yeah.
know if the courtroom sings really very well. So
Well,
I don't know how to answer that question. I'm not sure I have a movie or a TV show that would not, at least that would not be the next on my hit parade of things that I would write.
okay. All right. Well, again, no wrong answer. Because maybe there isn't one. Maybe there isn't a lawyer TV show or movie that would make a good. Who knows? But maybe somebody will come up with it. All right. Question number three. Jukebox musicals. Yay or nay?
I just saw MJ,
Mhm.
and I've seen Tina, and I've seen Ain't Too Proud, and Jersey Boys, and Beautiful, and all.
Yeah.
I try to see everything. I am not the biggest fan of jukebox musicals, but I think the one thing that they have going for them, even Mamma Mia, for example, that
Mhm.
was really a jukebox musical. It brings new people into the theater because they know the music. They come to hear the people singing, Tina Turner singing, Tina Turner, all the great
Yeah.
things. Look, the MJ thing, the guy who played Michael Jackson was really great. I mean, he really looked like Michael Jackson. And he acted like Michael Jackson. He sang like Michael Jackson. And the songs and the music were great. They had fantastic projections. It was a great, fun night in the theater. Was the story, was the book writing? It was all confused in, Act Two and whatever. I shouldn't be doing my critic thing on the air, but no, but so I think that the stories are pretty much all the same, about how these people had terrible childhoods and everything, and then they became famous, or or even when they were famous, they had a terrible time. Anyway, so I don't find that story-wise, the storytelling is not as interesting to me in jukebox musicals. But I think that people are attracted to them because the music is usually great. No one's going to do a jukebox musical without going to someone who wrote great songs. So there it is. It's great. They bring it to the theater and people go to it, and it brings people, maybe they'll go to another show because they like that. So for that reason, I'm for that.
All correct answers. Like, you were right about all that stuff. And it's true. It does bring in new people who might not be coming out to the theater, but a lot of the time it's, kind of cookie cutter plot for a jukebox musical. A, B, C follows the story. So all three answers correct. Congratulations. 3 out of 3. I have no prizes. You just win. So again, Joan, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Thank you again, John Paul.
No problem. We were just speaking with Joan Ross Sorkin here on Be Our Guest. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion, that is musical theater. I'm your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.